My wife cheated with a guy who had a crush on her since high school, and when I kicked her out she tried everything to win me back, including offering threesomes and an open relationship, but I just laughed in her face and filed for divorce anyway. Before all of this happened, I thought my wife Audrey, 33F, and I, 34M, had a solid relationship. We rarely fought about anything serious, we both had decent jobs, and we made time for each other even with busy schedules. I worked in IT and she was in marketing. We bought our first house 3 years ago and we're talking about starting a family next year. Audrey grew up in a small town about 2 hours away from where we live now. Most of her childhood friends still live there or nearby. One of those friends is Everly, who Audrey has known since middle school. Everly has a younger brother named Jaden, 29M, who I met a few times at parties and family events over the years. The first time Audrey introduced me to him was at Everly's birthday party about 8 years ago. Jaden was polite enough, but I noticed he kept trying to talk to Audrey throughout the night. Everly later told us that Jaden had a massive crush on Audrey back in high school and even asked her to prom, but she turned him down because she wasn't interested. When Audrey and I started dating, Jaden was apparently upset about it according to Everly. But by the time we got married, he seemed to have moved on and was dating other people. I never thought much about him. He worked as a mechanic and lived in an apartment near Everly. The few times I saw him at gatherings, he was friendly and we'd talk about cars or sports. I trusted Audrey completely and never questioned her friendships with anyone. About 6 weeks ago, Audrey told me she was going to visit her parents for a long weekend. Her mom had been dealing with some health issues and wanted Audrey to come help organize some things around the house. I was fine with it. We'd done these kinds of trips before where one of us would visit family alone if the other had work commitments. I had a big project deadline that Monday, so I stayed behind. Before she left on Friday afternoon, we had a small argument about the state of the kitchen. I'd left dishes in the sink for 2 days and she was annoyed that I hadn't cleaned up before she left. It wasn't a huge fight, but we were both a bit short with each other. She drove off and I texted her that night saying I'd take care of the kitchen and hoped she got there safely. She replied with a thumbs up emoji and that was it. We didn't text much on Saturday. I figured she was busy with her parents. Saturday night around 11, I got a text from her saying she was going out to a bar with Everly and another friend named Bennett. I told her to have fun and went to bed around midnight after watching a movie. I woke up Sunday morning at 8 and saw I had a missed call from Audrey at 5 in the morning. My stomach dropped. She never called that late unless something was wrong. I immediately called her back but she didn't answer. I tried 3 more times over the next hour and sent several texts asking if she was okay. Finally around 10, she texted back saying she was fine and would be home later that afternoon. The message was short and didn't explain the early morning call. I asked her again if everything was alright and she just said she'd talk to me when she got home. I spent the rest of the morning trying to focus on cleaning the house, but I couldn't shake the bad feeling in my gut. Audrey got home around 5 in the evening. When I opened the door, I barely recognized her. Her eyes were red and swollen like she'd been crying for hours. She wasn't wearing any makeup, which was unusual because she always at least put on mascara before going out. She was wearing the same clothes from the night before and her hair was a mess. She walked past me without saying anything and went straight to the couch. I followed her and asked what happened. She sat there staring at the floor and wouldn't look at me. I went to the kitchen and made her some tea, then sat down next to her. I put my hand on her shoulder and told her she could tell me anything. That's when she started crying again. She cried for what felt like forever, these horrible choking sobs where she could barely breathe. I just sat there waiting. When she finally calmed down enough to speak, she looked at me and the words came out in broken pieces. She said she slept with someone last night after the bar. She said his name was Jaden. Everything in my head went blank. I stood up and walked out of the room. I grabbed my car keys and left the house without saying a word to her. I drove to a park about 20 minutes away and just walked around in circles. My phone kept buzzing with calls from Audrey, but I turned it off after the 5th call. I stayed at the park for about 2 hours until I felt like I could drive back without crashing the car. When I got home, I went straight to the garage and pulled out 2 large duffel bags we used for camping trips. I started throwing Audrey's clothes into them. I wasn't thinking clearly about what I was packing. I just grabbed handfuls of stuff from her closet and dresser. I dragged the bags to the front door and went back to the living room. Audrey was on the floor curled up in a ball. I called Everly and told her that Audrey needed somewhere to stay and someone to pick her up. Everly started asking questions, but I told her to ask Audrey and hung up. I told Audrey that Everly was coming to get her and I was leaving for another hour. Audrey grabbed onto my legs and tried to get me to stay, but I pulled away and left again. I drove around town for a while and then sat in a parking lot until I was sure enough time had passed. When I got back home, Audrey and the bags were gone. The house was empty and quiet. I went to the bedroom and lay on the bed staring at the ceiling until I fell asleep. The next morning, I called in sick to work. Audrey had called and texted me about 50 times overnight, but I didn't read any of the messages. Around noon I finally answered one of her calls. She immediately started apologizing and begging to talk. I told her I wanted her to write down everything that happened that night in an email and send it to me. I said if she left anything out, there would be no chance of us ever talking about fixing this. Then I hung up. The email came that night around 9. I saw it in my inbox but I didn't open it. I wasn't ready to read the details. Instead, I spent the next few days on autopilot. I went to work and came home. I ate whatever was easy. I went to the gym every day and ran until my legs hurt. I barely slept. A couple of Audrey's friends tried to contact me but I blocked all of them. One of them showed up at the house on Wednesday demanding to know what I did to Audrey. I told her to talk to Audrey and close the door. On Thursday afternoon, I found a note that had been slipped under the front door. It was from Audrey asking if we could meet on Friday evening to talk. I didn't respond but I also didn't throw the note away. I spent Thursday night thinking about whether there was any point in meeting her. Part of me wanted to just file for divorce and be done with it. But another part of me felt like I needed to hear her explain what happened before I could move forward. I still hadn't read the email. I texted her Friday morning and agreed to meet at the house that evening at 7. She replied immediately saying she'd be there. The rest of Friday dragged on forever. I left work early and went to the gym for an hour. When I got home at 6:30, I cleaned up the living room and kitchen. I put my phone on the counter and set it to record audio. At exactly 7, the doorbell rang. Audrey looked terrible. She'd lost weight and had dark circles under her eyes. She tried to hug me when she came in but I stepped back. We sat down on opposite ends of the couch. I told her I was recording the conversation and she nodded. I said I hadn't read her email yet. She looked surprised but didn't say anything. I asked her to tell me what happened that night. She took a deep breath and started talking. She said she went to the bar with Everly and Bennett around 9. They had a few drinks but she wasn't drunk, just a bit tipsy. Around midnight, Everly texted Jaden to come pick them up because none of them wanted to drive. Jaden showed up and they all went to get food at a diner. After they ate, Jaden dropped Bennett off first, then Everly. Audrey said when it was just her and Jaden in the car, he asked if she wanted to come up to his apartment for a bit instead of him driving her all the way to her parents' house. She said she agreed because she didn't want him to have to drive so far. When they got to his apartment, she said she was going to call a cab but couldn't get one quickly. Jaden suggested she could sleep in his bed and he'd take the couch. She said she didn't want to do that and kept trying to get a cab. They were sitting on his bed looking at her phone when he kissed her. She said she kissed him back. Then they had sex. Afterwards she started crying and Jaden drove her to her parents' house. She cried in her old bedroom for another hour and then tried to call me. I sat there listening to all of this and the only thing I could think was that her story didn't make sense. Why would she go up to his apartment at all? Why was she on his bed? But I didn't ask her any of those questions. Instead I just told her that I was moving forward with the divorce. She started crying again and asking me not to do that. I told her I needed a month with no contact between us. During that month, we both had to stay faithful and get tested for STDs. I also told her she needed to tell our friends and family what happened. She agreed to everything immediately. She said she didn't expect me to stay faithful to her during the month but I told her that wasn't the point. I just needed time to think without her calling me every hour. She left after that and I sat on the couch for a long time before going to bed. Update 1: It's been 3 weeks since Audrey and I agreed to the month of no contact. A lot has happened and I needed to write an update because I'm not sure what to do next. The first week after our meeting was rough. I kept myself busy with work and the gym. A few of our mutual friends reached out after Audrey told them what happened. Most of them were supportive of me. A couple of them tried to defend Audrey and said everyone makes mistakes. I didn't argue with them. I just said I appreciated their concern and left it at that. Audrey's parents called me one night and apologized for what their daughter did. They said they hoped I would consider working things out with her but they understood if I wanted a divorce. I told them I hadn't decided yet. About 10 days after our meeting, I finally opened Audrey's email. It was a mistake. The email was detailed in ways I didn't need to know. She described the entire night including specifics about what happened in Jaden's apartment. She wrote about what they did and how long it lasted. She mentioned that they used protection. Reading that email made me feel sick. But what really caught my attention was what she didn't write. There was no mention of the cab story or trying to get home. In the email, she just said Jaden invited her up and she went. That was it. I closed the email and didn't open it again. The fact that she lied to my face during our meeting made the decision easier. There was no way I could trust her again if she was still making up stories to make herself look better. I started looking for divorce lawyers and had consultations with 3 different ones. I moved money from our joint account into a new account under just my name. I kept records of everything. Around the same time, Bennett reached out to me. She said she felt terrible about what happened and wanted to tell me her version of that night. I met her for coffee one afternoon. Bennett confirmed most of Audrey's story about the bar and getting food. But when I asked about the ride home, Bennett said something different. She told me that Jaden dropped her and Everly off first. Before Bennett got out of the car, she offered to let Audrey stay at her place since it was late. Audrey said no and that she was fine. Bennett didn't hear anything about Audrey needing a cab. She just assumed Audrey was going straight to her parents' house with Jaden driving her. After talking to Bennett, I reached out to Everly. I hadn't spoken to her since that Sunday when I called her to pick up Audrey. Everly called me back that evening and we talked for over an hour. She was upset with both Audrey and Jaden. She said Jaden had always been obsessed with Audrey and she'd warned him multiple times over the years to move on. Everly told me she didn't think anything had happened between them before that night, but she did remember something from about 8 months ago. She said she went to meet Audrey for lunch at a cafe and when she got there, Jaden was sitting at the table with Audrey. Everly said Audrey looked uncomfortable and claimed they'd run into each other by accident. Everly thought it was weird but didn't push it. That conversation made me wonder what else Audrey hadn't told me. I tried to focus on other things but it was hard. I went out with some friends from work one night and ended up drinking more than I should have. There was a woman at the bar who seemed interested in talking to me. We talked for a while and she gave me her number. I could have left with her but I didn't. I wanted to keep the agreement with Audrey about staying faithful during the separation, even though I was pretty sure the marriage was over. I haven't had any contact with Audrey since our meeting 3 weeks ago. I know from Bennett that Audrey moved into a short-term rental near our house. Apparently she's been calling in sick to work a lot and isn't doing well. Her friends and parents are checking in on her regularly. Part of me feels bad about that, but mostly I just feel numb. I go through my days doing what I need to do and not thinking too much about anything. Last week I got my STD test results back. Everything was negative. I don't know if Audrey got tested yet, but I assume she did since she agreed to it. The divorce lawyer I decided to work with sent me paperwork to review. He said we could file within the next few weeks if I was ready. I told him I wanted to wait until the month was up. I'm not sure why I'm waiting. Maybe I just want to be absolutely certain before I take that final step. Yesterday I was going through some old photos on my computer and found pictures from Everly's birthday party 8 years ago. There's one photo of Audrey and Jaden talking in the corner of the room. She's laughing at something he said and he's looking at her like she's the only person there. I stared at that photo for a long time trying to figure out if I'd missed something obvious back then. But honestly I don't think I did. I trusted her and I had no reason not to. The month of separation is almost over. Audrey sent me an email 2 days ago asking if we could meet again when the month is up. I haven't responded yet. I keep going back and forth on whether there's any point in seeing her. On one hand, I want to hear if she has anything new to say. On the other hand, I don't know what she could possibly tell me that would change anything. The lawyer said I don't have to meet with her if I don't want to. He said we can handle everything through lawyers if that's easier. I've been thinking about what I want my life to look like after this is all over. I'll probably sell the house since neither of us can afford it alone. I'll find a smaller place closer to work. Maybe I'll travel for a bit once the divorce is finalized. I haven't taken a real vacation in years. Some of my friends have been trying to set me up with people they know, but I'm not ready for that. I don't know when I'll be ready. The weird thing is that I don't cry about this. I haven't cried once since that Sunday when Audrey told me. I don't know if that's normal or if something is wrong with me. I just feel like I'm going through the motions of ending a marriage without actually processing what that means. Maybe it'll hit me later. Or maybe this is just how I deal with things. I still haven't decided if I'll meet with Audrey when the month is up. Part of me thinks I owe it to the 11 years we spent together to at least hear her out one more time. But another part of me thinks it's just delaying the inevitable. I'm about 95% sure I want the divorce. That last 5% is what's keeping me from filing the papers right now. Update 2: the month of separation ended 2 weeks ago. I agreed to let Audrey come to the house to pick up some work things she needed. My lawyer said I couldn't legally keep her from accessing her belongings, so I figured I'd just let her grab what she needed while I wasn't home. I told her she could come by on a Thursday evening while I was at the gym and to be gone by 7:30. I got home at 8 and her car was still in the driveway. I sat in my car for a minute trying to decide if I should just leave again, but I was tired and wanted to be in my own house. When I walked in, Audrey was in the kitchen. The work stuff she supposedly needed was sitting by the stairs. She'd cleaned the entire downstairs and was cutting vegetables like she was making dinner. She was wearing one of the dresses I used to say looked nice on her and had done her hair and makeup. I asked her what she was doing and she said she wanted to cook for me. I told her that wasn't what we agreed to and she needed to leave. She stopped cutting and asked if we could talk for a bit. I was annoyed, but I also figured we'd have to talk eventually. I got my phone out and started recording audio again. She noticed but didn't object. We sat down at the kitchen table and talked for about an hour. I asked her if she'd kept the agreement during the separation. She said yes. She showed me her negative test results and said she wasn't pregnant. She said she hadn't been with anyone else and had told several friends and both of her parents what happened. Her dad apparently wasn't speaking to her anymore. Some of her friends had stopped talking to her too. I asked her about the cab story she told me at our first meeting. She admitted it was made up. She said Jaden invited her up for a drink and she said yes. She said she knew on some level that something might happen when she agreed to go up. I asked her why she would do that and she said she didn't have a good answer. She said Jaden had always given her attention and made her feel attractive, and that night she was enjoying it. She said there was nothing wrong in our marriage and she hated herself for ruining it. I asked her about the texts Everly mentioned. Audrey admitted that Jaden had texted her a few times over the years. She said he would compliment her and tell her she looked good when he saw photos of her online. She claimed she never led him on and never sent him inappropriate messages. She said he was always the one reaching out first. I asked about the cafe incident from 8 months ago. She said Jaden texted her asking what she was doing and she told him she was getting lunch. He showed up and sat with her before Everly got there. She swore nothing physical happened between them until that night at his apartment. I told her I didn't believe her. She started crying again and asked what she needed to do to prove she was telling the truth. She offered to share her phone location with me at all times. She said she'd never go anywhere without me if we got back together. She said she'd do whatever I wanted. I told her I had no interest in being her prison guard. I said even if she was telling the truth about everything, I'd never be able to get over what she did. The trust was gone and it wasn't coming back. She asked me to turn off the recording because she wanted to say something private. I said no. She looked uncomfortable but kept talking anyway. She asked if I'd been with anyone else during the separation. I said no. She said she would have understood if I had been. Then she started talking about things we used to do in bed and things I'd mentioned wanting to try that we never did. She said she'd be willing to do those things even if we didn't stay married. She said she just wanted to make me happy in whatever way she could. I didn't know what to say. She kept going and said she'd be open to having other people join us if that was something I wanted. She said I could be with other people and she wouldn't. She even offered to find women for us. It was so desperate and strange that I almost laughed. Then I did something I'm not proud of. I mentioned one of her coworkers by name. This woman was younger than Audrey and objectively attractive. I said if we were going to do something like that, maybe we should ask her. Audrey looked surprised but then asked me what I had in mind. I described a scenario in detail that got increasingly explicit. She was encouraging me to keep talking. Then I said she would just be watching the whole time. Her face changed when I said that. I think she realized I was trying to hurt her the same way she hurt me. I'm not sure why I did it. Maybe I wanted her to feel a fraction of what I'd been feeling. It was petty and mean and I knew it even while I was doing it. Audrey stood up and pulled her dress up. She got on the couch in one of the positions we used to use. She asked me to sleep with her. For a few seconds my body reacted the way it always had. But then I remembered the email and everything it described. I thought about Jaden and her being in his apartment. I thought about the lies she told me. And I started laughing. It wasn't a polite laugh. It was a full body laugh that I couldn't control. Audrey looked hurt and moved away from me. She started crying again. I told her it was time for her to leave and that she should get a lawyer because we were getting divorced. She grabbed her work things and left without saying anything else. I heard her car pull out of the driveway a minute later. After she left, I felt like something had shifted. I'd been going back and forth about the divorce for weeks. But seeing her like that and realizing she thought sex would fix things made it clear. There was no coming back from this. I called my lawyer the next morning and told him to file the papers. Update 3: the divorce was finalized last week. It took about 2 months to sort everything out, but it's done now. Audrey and I had a few more conversations during the process, but they were all practical discussions about dividing assets and selling the house. We decided to split everything as evenly as possible to avoid a long legal battle. About a month ago, Audrey asked if I would meet her for lunch. I agreed because I thought it might give us both some closure. We met at a restaurant halfway between her new place and our house. She looked better than the last time I saw her. She'd gained back the weight she lost and seemed more put together. We talked for about an hour. She apologized again and said she'd been going to therapy to work on herself. She asked if there was anything she could do to change my mind about the divorce. I told her no. I said I believed she was sorry and I even believed she'd never cheat again, but I couldn't get past what happened. A week after that lunch, Audrey sent me an email asking if I would come to one session with her therapist. She said the therapist did marriage counseling and wanted to talk to both of us. I wasn't sure if it was a good idea, but I eventually agreed to go. The session was 2 weeks ago. The therapist was professional and didn't take sides. She asked us both questions about our marriage and what led to the cheating. Audrey cried through most of it. I stayed calm and explained how I felt about the betrayal and the lies. The therapist asked me if I thought the marriage could be saved with work. I said I didn't think so. She asked why and I told her that even if Audrey never lied again and even if she did everything right from here on out, I would never be able to trust her the way I did before. I said rebuilding that trust would take years and I didn't want to spend years wondering if she was telling me the truth every time she went out or texted someone. The therapist nodded and said she understood. Audrey asked if I was completely sure and I said yes. Last weekend I drove to Audrey's parents' house to return some tools I'd borrowed from her dad a while back. Her parents stepped outside to talk to me before I left. They said they were sorry about how things turned out and that they always liked me. I told them I appreciated that and there were no hard feelings toward them. They went inside and gave Audrey and me some time to talk alone. We sat on the front porch and went over everything one more time. I told her I'd thought about it a lot and I was certain divorce was the right choice. I explained that I didn't see a way for us to get back to what we had before. Too much had changed. She said she understood and asked what happened to us. I said she made a choice that night and now we both had to live with the consequences. Audrey accepted it this time without begging or crying. We spent the next hour talking about practical stuff like when the house would go on the market and how we'd split the furniture. We wrote everything down in an email and sent it to both of our lawyers. When we were done, she walked me to my car. She said she hoped I'd be happy and find someone who deserved me. I told her I hoped she figured out whatever she needed to figure out. We didn't hug or shake hands. I just got in my car and drove away. The house goes up for sale next week. I've already started looking at apartments closer to downtown. I'm not in a rush to date anyone. A few people have asked me out, but I've turned them down. I've been spending more time with friends and picked up some hobbies I dropped over the years. I started playing basketball again on weekends and joined a recreational league. My parents keep asking if I'm okay and I tell them I am. Most days that's true. Some days it hits me that I'm starting over at 34 and I thought I'd be in a completely different place by now. But I'm not dwelling on it. What happened happened and there's no changing it. I'm just trying to move forward and build something new. The divorce is done and that chapter of my life is closed. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. My girlfriend promised to be more honest after I caught her with another man, but then I discovered she was still lying about where she was going and who she was meeting every single day. When I finally confronted her, she claimed her therapist was taking her on dinner dates to discuss her progress. Last Saturday was supposed to be our 2-year anniversary. Instead, I discovered something that made me question everything I thought I knew about my girlfriend Maya, 24F, and our relationship. I'm Jake, 27M, and I need to get this out because I can't sleep and my mind keeps racing. The evening started normal enough. I had made reservations at Bella Vista, this upscale Italian place downtown that Maya had mentioned wanting to try for months. I picked her up from her apartment at 7, and she looked stunning in this navy blue dress I had never seen before. She seemed excited about dinner and kept talking about how she had been looking forward to this night all week. We got to the restaurant around 7:30. The hostess seated us at a corner table with candles and everything. Maya ordered the seafood pasta, I got the ribeye. We shared a bottle of wine and talked about work, her sister's upcoming wedding, and our summer vacation plans. Everything felt perfect. She was laughing at my jokes, reaching across the table to touch my hand, telling me how much she loved me. Around 9:15, Maya excused herself to use the restroom. She kissed my cheek and said she would be right back. I ordered us dessert while she was gone, tiramisu, her favorite. The waiter brought it out 10 minutes later, but Maya still wasn't back. I figured the restaurant was busy and there might be a line for the women's room. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. I started getting worried. I asked our waiter if he had seen her, but he just shrugged and said maybe she was taking a phone call outside. I walked toward the restrooms to check, but a woman coming out told me no one was in there. I went outside and walked around the building twice. No sign of Maya anywhere. I called her phone. It went straight to voicemail. I texted her asking where she was. No response. By this point, it had been 45 minutes since she left the table. The waiter kept coming by asking if everything was okay, and I didn't know what to tell him. I paid the check and left, thinking maybe she had gotten sick and gone home without telling me. I drove to her apartment building. Her car wasn't in the parking lot. I rang her buzzer anyway. No answer. I called her phone again. Still voicemail. I sat in my car for an hour, calling every 15 minutes and getting more confused by the minute. Finally, around 11:30, I decided to drive around the neighborhood near the restaurant. Maybe her car had broken down or something had happened. I was turning down 3rd Street when I saw her red Honda Civic parked outside Murphy's Pub, this dive bar about 6 blocks from where we had dinner. I parked across the street and went inside. The place was crowded, dimly lit, with a jukebox playing classic rock. I scanned the room and didn't see Maya at first. Then I spotted her in a corner booth near the back. She wasn't alone. Maya was sitting across from a guy I had never seen before. He looked maybe 30, tall, wearing a black button-down shirt. They were leaning close to each other across the table, and he had his hand covering hers. Maya was smiling and laughing in a way that made my stomach drop. It was the same laugh she had been giving me just 2 hours earlier. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds, watching them. The guy reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind Maya's ear. She didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned even closer to him and said something that made him grin. I walked over to their table. Maya looked up and saw me. Her face went completely white. Maya, what are you doing here? She pulled her hand away from the guys and started stammering. She said she had run into an old friend from college and decided to catch up. She introduced him as Derek, someone she hadn't seen in years who happened to be at the restaurant when she went to the bathroom. Derek stood up and shook my hand like nothing unusual was happening. He said it was great to finally meet me, that Maya talked about me all the time. He was acting completely normal, which somehow made everything worse. I asked Maya why she didn't come back to tell me she was leaving. Why her phone was turned off. Why she had been gone for over 2 hours without a word. She said her phone had died and she had lost track of time. She seemed flustered and kept looking between Derek and me like she was trying to figure out what to say next. She suggested we all have a drink together, that Derek was just passing through town and would be leaving tomorrow. I told her I was going home and that she could call me when she was ready to explain what was really going on. Maya followed me outside and tried to stop me from leaving. She kept saying she was sorry, that she hadn't meant for this to happen, that she had just run into Derek by accident and one thing led to another. I asked her how running into someone by accident leads to sitting in a bar for 2 hours holding hands while your boyfriend waits at a restaurant. She didn't have an answer for that. I drove home and Maya came by my apartment around 1 in the morning. She was crying and saying she was sorry over and over. She swore nothing physical happened with Derek, that they were just talking and catching up. She said she knew how bad it looked but insisted it was innocent. The problem is, this isn't the first time something like this has happened. 3 months ago, I found text messages on her phone from a coworker named Brad. She had been complaining to him about our relationship and telling him personal things about our fights. When I confronted her about it, she said Brad was just a friend and that she needed someone to talk to. 6 months before that, I showed up at her office to surprise her with lunch and found her having what looked like a very intimate conversation with another guy in the parking lot. They were standing close together and he had his hand on her shoulder. When Maya saw me, she quickly stepped away and introduced him as just a client. But something about the way they were acting didn't sit right with me. Maya has always been social and friendly. She has a lot of male friends, which never bothered me before we started dating. But over the past year, I've noticed a pattern. She disappears for hours without explanation. She gets mysterious phone calls that she takes in another room. She's constantly texting people she claims are just friends but won't let me see the conversations. Last month, she went to her friend Sarah's birthday party and didn't come home until 3 in the morning. When I asked how the party was, she was vague about who was there and what they did. She said they just went to a few bars and lost track of time. But when I talked to Sarah a week later, Sarah mentioned that Maya had left the party early with some guy Sarah didn't recognize. I've tried talking to Maya about these things before. Every time, she gets defensive and accuses me of not trusting her. She says I'm being paranoid and controlling. She reminds me that she's never actually cheated on me and that I shouldn't punish her for my insecurities. But sitting in that restaurant for 2 hours, wondering where my girlfriend was on our anniversary, and then finding her with another man, I don't know how to get past this. Even if nothing physical happened with Derek, the fact that she left me without a word to spend the evening with him says something about her priorities. Maya has been texting me constantly since Saturday night. She wants to meet up and talk things through. She says Derek is just a friend from college who she happened to run into, and that she made a mistake by not coming back to tell me she was leaving. She promises it won't happen again. But I keep thinking about all the other times. All the mysterious disappearances and secret conversations. All the times she made me feel like I was crazy for questioning her behavior. I'm starting to wonder if there have been other Dereks that I just never found out about. Maya says she loves me and wants to work things out. She suggested we take a trip together next weekend to reconnect. Part of me wants to believe her and try to move forward. We've been together for 2 years, and most of the time things are good between us. But another part of me feels like I can't trust anything she says anymore. How am I supposed to feel secure in this relationship when she disappears without warning and shows up in bars with other men? How do I know this won't happen again the next time we go out to dinner? I'm supposed to see Maya tonight. She wants to cook dinner at her place and talk about everything. I don't know what to tell her. I don't know if this is something we can work through or if it's time to admit that we want different things. Has anyone else dealt with something like this? Am I overreacting to what Maya says was just an innocent conversation with an old friend? Or is this the kind of behavior that only gets worse over time? Update 1. I thought I should update you all on what happened after my last post. Things took a turn I wasn't expecting, and I could really use some outside perspective on where to go from here. After reading through all your comments, I decided to meet with Maya that Tuesday night like we had planned. She made pasta and we sat at her kitchen table to talk things through. Maya apologized again for leaving me at the restaurant and said she understood why I was upset. She explained that Derek had recognized her when she was walking to the bathroom and they started talking in the hallway. According to Maya, Derek mentioned he was in town for work and suggested they grab a quick drink to catch up. She said she meant to come back and tell me but Derek seemed really down about his recent divorce and she didn't want to leave him alone. She claimed she lost track of time and her phone died, which is why she couldn't call me. Maya showed me Derek's contact information in her phone and offered to call him right there so I could hear their conversation. She said she wanted to prove that nothing romantic happened between them. I told her that wasn't necessary, but I did ask her to be more considerate in the future about letting me know if her plans changed. We talked for 3 hours that night. Maya cried and said she didn't want to lose me over a misunderstanding. She promised to be more communicative and suggested we could share our locations with each other on our phones so I would always know where she was. I agreed to give our relationship another chance. For the next 2 weeks, things seemed to improve. Maya was more attentive and made an effort to include me in her social plans. She would text me throughout the day to let me know what she was doing and who she was with. She even invited me to happy hour with her coworkers so I could meet them properly. But last Friday, something happened that made me question everything again. I had to work late to finish a project, so I couldn't join Maya and her friends for dinner like we had planned. She said they were going to Romano's, this pizza place near her office, and that she would probably be home by 9. Around 10:30, I finished up at work and decided to surprise Maya by picking her up from dinner. I called her phone to ask if she was ready to leave, but it went straight to voicemail. I figured the restaurant was loud and she couldn't hear it ring. I drove to Romano's and asked the hostess if she had seen Maya and her group. The hostess said no one matching Maya's description had been there that evening. I thought maybe they had changed their plans and gone somewhere else. I tried calling Maya's friend Jessica, who was supposed to be at dinner with them. Jessica sounded confused and said they had planned to meet up but Maya had cancelled around 6, saying something had come up and she couldn't make it. I drove to Maya's apartment. Her car wasn't there. I called her phone again and left a voicemail asking her to call me back. I went home and waited. Maya didn't get back to me until almost midnight. When she finally called, Maya said there had been a change of plans and the dinner got cancelled. She claimed she had gone to the mall to do some shopping and then stopped by her sister's house to help with wedding preparations. She said her phone had been on silent and she hadn't seen my calls. I asked her why she told me she was going to Romano's if the dinner was cancelled. Maya got defensive and said she had meant to text me about the change but forgot. She accused me of checking up on her and said it made her uncomfortable that I had called Jessica. The next day, I decided to talk to Jessica directly. I ran into her at the coffee shop near my office and casually asked about Friday night. Jessica said Maya had definitely cancelled dinner, but she seemed surprised when I mentioned Maya going to her sister's house. Jessica said Maya's sister had been out of town all week for a work conference. I didn't say anything to Maya about my conversation with Jessica, but I started paying closer attention to her behavior. On Sunday, Maya said she was going grocery shopping and asked if I needed anything. I said no and continued watching TV. About an hour later, I realized I was out of coffee and decided to drive to the store to pick some up. I went to the grocery store Maya usually shops at. I walked through the entire place twice and didn't see her or her car. I checked 2 other stores in the area. Nothing. Maya came home 3 hours later with 2 small bags of groceries, definitely not enough to justify a 3-hour trip. When I asked how the shopping went, Maya said it was crowded and she had to wait in long lines. She also mentioned stopping by the pharmacy and getting gas. But when I looked at her receipt later, everything was timestamped within a 20-minute window. Tuesday evening, Maya said she was meeting her friend Rachel for drinks after work. She said they were going to Flanagan's, this Irish pub downtown, and that she would be home by 8. I had dinner plans with my brother, so I said that sounded fine. My brother had to cancel at the last minute, so I found myself with a free evening. Around 7:30, I decided to walk over to Flanagan's and see if Maya wanted to grab a late dinner together after her drinks with Rachel. I got to Flanagan's and asked the bartender if he had seen Maya. I described her and mentioned she was supposed to be meeting a friend. The bartender said he knew most of the regulars and no one matching Maya's description had been in that evening. I sat at the bar for an hour, thinking maybe I had missed them or they were running late. Maya never showed up. I called her phone around 9 and she answered on the second ring. Maya said she and Rachel had decided to go to a different bar because Flanagan's was too crowded. When I asked which bar, she paused for a few seconds before saying they had gone to Murphy's instead. I asked if she wanted me to meet them there, and Maya quickly said they were actually just finishing up and heading home. Maya got to her apartment around 9:45. I was waiting in the parking lot. She seemed surprised to see me and asked what I was doing there. I told her I had wanted to surprise her and Rachel with dinner, but that I couldn't find them at Flanagan's. Maya said they had changed their minds about going there because Rachel wanted somewhere quieter. When I asked how Rachel was doing, Maya gave generic answers and seemed like she was making things up as she went along. The next day, I looked up Rachel on social media. According to her posts, she had been at a work conference in Chicago all week and wouldn't be back until Thursday. I haven't confronted Maya about any of this yet because I'm trying to figure out what's really going on. Either she's lying to me about where she's going and who she's with, or I'm losing my mind and imagining things that aren't there. Part of me wonders if Maya is seeing someone else and these mysterious disappearances are cover stories for dates or meetings. But another part of me thinks maybe she's just bad at communicating and doesn't realize how suspicious her behavior looks. I keep going back to that night at Murphy's when I found her with Derek. She had lied about where she was going then too. She had left me at a restaurant without explanation and turned off her phone. The pattern feels the same. I love Maya and I want to trust her, but I don't know how to move forward when I can't believe anything she tells me about her whereabouts. I feel like I'm turning into the kind of person who checks up on their partner all the time, and I hate that. Should I confront Maya directly about the inconsistencies in her stories? Should I ask to see her phone or her location history? Or should I just accept that this relationship isn't working and walk away before things get worse? I know some of you will say I should just break up with her, but 2 years feels like a lot to throw away without being completely sure about what's happening. At the same time, I can't keep living like this, wondering where my girlfriend really is every time she leaves the house. Update 2: I need to update you all because the situation with Maya has gotten much more complicated than I expected. After my last post, I decided to have a direct conversation with her about the inconsistencies I had noticed. That conversation led to discoveries I wasn't prepared for. Last Tuesday, I asked Maya to come over for dinner. I cooked her favorite meal, chicken parmesan with garlic bread, and we sat down to eat. I told her I needed to talk to her about something important. I explained that I had been feeling confused about some of the things she had told me recently. I mentioned that Jessica had said Maya canceled dinner, not that the whole group canceled. I brought up how Rachel was apparently in Chicago when Maya said they were having drinks together. Maya's face changed as I was talking. She set down her fork and stared at her plate for a long time. Finally, she asked how I knew about Jessica and Rachel's schedules. I told her I had run into Jessica and looked at Rachel's social media. Maya accused me of spying on her and said she felt like she was dating a detective instead of a boyfriend. She said my behavior was making her feel trapped and that she needed space to think about whether our relationship was healthy. I told Maya I wouldn't have to check up on her if she would just tell me the truth about where she was going. I said I felt like she had been lying to me for weeks and I didn't understand why. Maya was quiet for several minutes. Then she started crying and said there was something she needed to tell me. She said she had been meeting with someone, but not in the way I thought. According to Maya, she had been going to meetings for a support group. She said she had been struggling with anxiety and depression since her father died 8 months ago, and her doctor had recommended group therapy. Maya said she felt embarrassed about needing help and didn't want me to know because she thought I would see her as weak or damaged. Maya explained that Derek, the guy from Murphy's, was also in the group. She said they had talked about their sessions that night and lost track of time. She said all her mysterious disappearances had been trips to meetings or individual therapy appointments that she was hiding from me. I asked Maya why she couldn't just tell me she was getting help for her mental health. I said I would have been supportive and proud of her for taking care of herself. Maya said she knew I would be understanding, but she still felt ashamed about needing therapy. Maya showed me her appointment confirmations on her phone and gave me the name of her therapist. She said she had been going to sessions twice a week for the past 3 months and group meetings on Friday evenings. She apologized for lying about where she was going and said she should have trusted me with the truth from the beginning. I felt terrible for doubting Maya and for making her feel like she couldn't be honest with me about something so important. I apologized for checking up on her and said I was proud of her for getting help. We talked about how we could communicate better in the future and I promised to be more supportive. For the next month, things seemed to get back on track. Maya was more open about her therapy schedule and would tell me when she had appointments. She seemed happier and more relaxed. I made an effort to ask how her sessions were going and to be encouraging about her progress. But then something happened that changed everything again. 2 weeks ago, I was at my friend Mark's house watching football. Mark's girlfriend Sarah was there, and we got to talking about different topics. Sarah mentioned that she had started going to a support group for people dealing with family addiction issues. I told Sarah that Maya was also in a support group for anxiety and depression. Sarah seemed interested and asked which group Maya was attending. I told her I didn't know the specific name, just that it was through Maya's therapist's office. Sarah said there weren't many support groups in our area and that she might know the one Maya was talking about. She asked what day Maya usually went to meetings. I said Friday evenings. Sarah looked confused and said the only support group that met on Friday evenings was hers, and it was specifically for people dealing with family members who had addiction problems. She said there weren't any anxiety or depression groups that met on Fridays. I didn't say anything else to Sarah about it, but I started thinking about what she had said. When I got home, I looked up support groups in our area online. Sarah was right, there were only 3 groups that met on Friday evenings, and none of them matched what Maya had described. I decided to call the therapist's office that Maya had mentioned. I told the receptionist I was calling about my girlfriend's appointments and wanted to confirm her schedule. The receptionist said they had no patient by Maya's name and asked if I might have the wrong office. I checked the appointment confirmations Maya had shown me on her phone. The address matched the office I had called. I called back and asked to speak to the specific therapist Maya had mentioned. The receptionist said no one by that name worked there. That Friday, I told Maya I had a work emergency and would be home late. Instead, I followed her when she left for her supposed group meeting. Maya drove to a restaurant across town called the Olive Branch. She parked and went inside. I waited in my car for about 10 minutes, then went into the restaurant. I asked the hostess if she had seen Maya and described her. The hostess pointed to a corner booth where Maya was sitting across from a man I didn't recognize. This wasn't Derek. This was someone completely different. A guy maybe in his 30s with dark hair and a beard. They were holding hands across the table and talking quietly. Maya was wearing a dress I had never seen before and had done her hair differently than usual. I watched them for maybe 5 minutes. The man reached across and touched Maya's face. She leaned into his hand and smiled. They looked like a couple having a romantic dinner. I left the restaurant without confronting them. I drove home and waited for Maya to get back. She came home around 10:30 and told me about her group meeting. She said they had talked about coping strategies and that she was feeling much better after the session. I asked Maya specific questions about what they had discussed in group. She gave vague answers and seemed like she was making things up. When I asked about the other people in the group, she described them in very general terms that could have applied to anyone. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about what I had seen and trying to make sense of it. Either Maya was having an affair, or there was some explanation I wasn't seeing. The next morning, I told Maya I needed to talk to her. I said I knew she hadn't been at a support group the night before because I had seen her at the Olive Branch with another man. Maya's face went completely white. She sat down on her couch and put her head in her hands. For several minutes, she didn't say anything. Finally, Maya looked up and said she had been lying about the support group. She said she had been meeting with someone, but that it wasn't what I thought. She claimed the man I saw was her therapist and that they had been having dinner to discuss her progress in a more relaxed setting. I told Maya that therapists don't have dinner dates with their patients and that what I saw looked nothing like a professional meeting. I said they were holding hands and touching each other's faces. Maya started crying and said she could explain everything. She said her therapist had been helping her work through some personal issues and that their relationship had become more complicated than it should have been. She claimed nothing physical had happened but admitted that there were feelings involved. I asked Maya if she was having an affair. She said no, but that she had developed feelings for her therapist and wasn't sure what to do about it. She said that's why she had been lying to me, because she was confused about her emotions and didn't know how to handle the situation. I told Maya that having romantic dinners with another man, regardless of who he was, constituted cheating in my opinion. I said the lying and deception made everything worse. Maya kept saying she was sorry and that she never meant for things to get so complicated. I left Maya's apartment and haven't spoken to her since. She's been calling and texting constantly, saying she wants to explain everything and work things out. She claims she's ended things with her therapist and wants to start over with me. But I don't know if I can trust anything Maya says anymore. The support group story was an elaborate lie that she maintained for months. She created fake appointment confirmations and made up details about therapy sessions that never happened. If she could lie about something that big for that long, what else has she been lying about? I keep thinking about all the other times Maya disappeared or was vague about where she was going. How many other men have there been? How long has this been going on? Maya says she loves me and wants to fight for our relationship. She's offered to cut off contact with this man and to be completely transparent about where she goes and who she talks to. But after everything that's happened, I don't know if that's enough. Update 3. This will be my last update about the situation with Maya. A lot has happened since my previous post, and I think I finally have the full picture of what was going on in our relationship. After I discovered Maya at dinner with the man she claimed was her therapist, I decided I needed to know the complete truth before making any decisions about our future. I couldn't move forward with so many unanswered questions. I spent a few days thinking about everything that had happened over the past several months. All the lies, the mysterious disappearances, the inconsistent stories. I realized that Maya's behavior had been escalating gradually, and I had been making excuses for it because I didn't want to face what was really happening. The following Tuesday, I texted Maya and asked her to meet me at a coffee shop near my office. I told her I wanted to have one final conversation where she could tell me the complete truth about everything, and then I would decide whether our relationship could continue. Maya agreed to meet me. She showed up looking tired and stressed. We sat in a corner booth and I told her this was her chance to be completely honest with me about what had been going on. Maya started crying before she even began talking. She said she had been having an affair for the past 4 months. The man I saw her with at the Olive Branch was named Kevin, and he was someone she had met at her gym. Maya said it started as just friendly conversation, but developed into something more over time. According to Maya, she had been meeting Kevin regularly for coffee, lunch, and dinner. The support group story was her way of creating time to see him without me getting suspicious. Maya said she had also been lying about other things, the shopping trips, the canceled dinners with friends, the work events she claimed to attend. I asked Maya why she hadn't just broken up with me if she wanted to be with someone else. She said she didn't want to lose me, but she also couldn't stop seeing Kevin. Maya claimed she loved us both and had been hoping she could figure out what she wanted without hurting anyone. Maya told me that Derek, the man from our anniversary dinner, was also someone she had been involved with. Not physically, according to her, but emotionally. She said Derek had been texting her for weeks before that night, and she had been responding because she enjoyed the attention. I asked Maya how many other men there had been. She said Kevin and Derek were the only ones, but the way she answered made me think there might have been others she wasn't admitting to. Maya apologized repeatedly and said she knew she had made terrible choices. She begged me to give her another chance and promised she would end things with Kevin immediately. She said she would do anything to save our relationship. I told Maya that I appreciated her finally being honest, but that too much damage had been done. I said I couldn't trust her anymore and that I didn't think we could build a healthy relationship on the foundation of lies and deception she had created. Maya tried to argue that we could work through this with time and effort. She said she understood why I was angry but that she truly loved me and wanted to make things right. She offered to show me her phone, give me her passwords, and check in with me constantly so I would know where she was. I explained to Maya that I didn't want to be in a relationship where I had to monitor my partner's every move. I said that wasn't healthy for either of us, and that the trust between us was broken beyond repair. We talked for about 2 hours. Maya cried and pleaded with me to reconsider. She said she would get counseling and work on herself. She promised she would never lie to me again and that she would prove she could be the girlfriend I deserved. But I had already made my decision. I told Maya that our relationship was over and that I wouldn't be changing my mind. I said I hoped she would learn from this experience and treat her next partner better than she had treated me. Maya asked if we could stay in contact as friends. I told her I needed space and time to move on, and that maybe someday in the future we could have a friendly relationship, but not anytime soon. The next week, Maya came by my apartment to pick up her belongings that she had left there over the course of our relationship. She tried one more time to convince me to give her another chance. I remained firm in my decision. Maya moved out of her apartment the following month. I heard from mutual friends that she and Kevin are now dating openly. Part of me wonders if she had been planning to leave me for him all along, and was just keeping me as a backup option while she figured out her feelings. It's been 3 weeks since Maya and I officially ended things. I won't lie and say it's been easy. 2 years is a long time to spend with someone, and there are moments when I miss the good parts of our relationship. But overall, I feel relieved to be out of a situation where I was constantly questioning what was real and what was a lie. I've learned a lot about myself through this experience. I realized that I was willing to ignore red flags and make excuses for behavior that should have been unacceptable to me. I was so focused on trying to save our relationship that I lost sight of whether it was actually worth saving. Some friends have asked if I regret staying with Maya as long as I did after the first incident with Derek. Honestly, I don't regret trying to work things out. I think it's important to give people the benefit of the doubt and to try to work through problems in relationships when possible. But I also learned that there's a difference between working through normal relationship issues and tolerating deliberate deception. Maya wasn't just making mistakes or having communication problems. She was actively lying to me on a daily basis and creating elaborate cover stories to hide her affairs. Looking back, I can see that Maya's behavior was escalating over time. It started with small lies and mysterious disappearances, then progressed to fake therapy appointments and completely fabricated stories about where she was spending her time. If I had stayed, I suspect the lies would have only gotten more elaborate and the affairs more serious. I'm taking some time to focus on myself and figure out what I want in my next relationship. I've started exercising more, spending time with friends I had neglected while dealing with Maya's drama, and pursuing hobbies I had put on hold. Several people have suggested I should consider counseling to work through trust issues that might affect future relationships. I'm thinking about it, but for now I'm just trying to process everything that happened and move forward with my life. To anyone who might be in a similar situation, if your partner is consistently lying to you about where they are and who they're with, trust your instincts. You're probably not being paranoid or controlling. You're likely seeing real red flags that shouldn't be ignored. Don't make the mistake I made of trying to rationalize suspicious behavior or giving multiple chances to someone who keeps betraying your trust. Some problems in relationships can be worked through with communication and effort. But deliberate deception and cheating are usually signs of deeper character issues that won't change just because you want them to. I know Maya is reading these posts because she texted me about them. Maya, if you see this, I hope you get the help you need to figure out why you felt the need to lie and cheat instead of just being honest about what you wanted. I hope your next relationship is healthier for both you and Kevin. As for me, I'm looking forward to eventually finding someone who values honesty and commitment as much as I do. For now, I'm content being single and rebuilding my life without the constant stress of wondering whether my partner is telling me the truth. Thank you to everyone who commented on my previous posts. Your perspectives helped me see the situation more clearly and gave me the courage to do what needed to be done.